percentages where they are now for specialty shops.
That's not part of their request. He had that once before when he got denied, and did not include that in this request.
But if that is a condition that is added, yes, it would go for all specialty shops.
Did you hear all that, Case?
Yeah, I did.
So that,
Okay.
that's
Well,
what.
obviously, that's just my opinion on it right now. Obviously, we'll talk about it at the council meeting as well. Hopefully, I'll be there in time. I'm trying to get there by 7. But I mean, listening to it, and I know that last time we sort of tiptoed in, and Randy, was I correct? And they were not, the applicant didn't attend the alcohol control board.
That is correct.
Right?
That is correct. I think they may have messed up the date. I don't know. It was on the agenda.
Well, it just seems, I mean, it seems odd that they're that passionate about it that they no show. I mean, that's sort of odd.
Yeah, it
Okay.
was odd.
All right, Dan, thank you.
All right.
Who else on the phone? Anybody else?
So how do you get the label with a specialty shop? What is the criteria?
It's not well defined. I think any mom and pop shop in downtown can be a specialty shop.
Okay, so if we start finagling this and changing this and making adjustments to this specialty shop ordinance and saying, okay, we do this, this, and this, you can apply for a spirit license or beer and wine license, we're pretty much opening up the doors for any of them to decide they want to sell it, right?
We've already done that. Started out with the retail out there,
Right.
10%, 90%. Since then, it's expanded to farm specialty shops, and that went way down to Cartersville specialty shop.
Okay.
Because I think that the specialty shop to me is, and I was in favor of the specialty shop and the change of ordinance because it was about wine and craft beer, and it was sort of a specialty thing. It wasn't just a package store or just, a bar. I know the cigar bar is under a certain, their own ordinance. Same thing with the outfitters, and that's why we went to the specialty shop, because there was some interest to do that. So I think we are kind of continuing to expand the guardrails and taking away what was defined as specialty shop. That's why I'd like to keep it where it's at. But
Is there anyone present?
Or you can't, it's just a work session for the council and stuff.
Or is anyone on the phone though? Someone?
Yeah, I have Gary. Gary, do you have any comments about the specialty shop?
No, I'm assuming, and I couldn't even hear what the other folks were saying, but I'm assuming they were talking about the percentage of sales.
Yes, they
Is
were
that what
asking
they were
if that was a part of the application, and it is not.
Yeah, I mean, basically it's at 65%. So whatever, if we were to approve this, it would remain up to 65%. So.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, thanks.
So we'll leave it at this and continue discussion. In council start. Moving along. The first reading of orders, T22-4.
This is a proposed text amendment to the zoning ordinance to allow private parks as a special use permit in the office commercial zoning category. Currently is allowed in several other categories, right in the adjacent R20 zoning district is allowed by right. The applicant is looking to do a private park on the property kind of back behind Angels. That is the second part of this application, or this request, special use application. If y'all choose to make the text amendment, they did follow up
application just said practice fields. You're not planning to lights and scoreboard and
Not at this
bleachers
time,
and all that?
but there's nothing in there that prevents the lights and scoreboard. And it's in the current special use permit application. That could be considered if you want.
Well, it's not near a residence that I could tell. I mean, their own residence, I guess, but, yeah, just their own residence.
Right there, they own 34 acres and they're looking for special use permit. So it wouldn't really affect the text amendment portion of it, but the special use permit portion will look at the individual site by site basis. And if lights are an issue on a certain site, then we can address that. I don't know that they are on this one.
And I think in that, where can a stadium be built? Can a stadium be built in this? I was looking through it, like, I guess there's a stadium, but, you know, now they want to put a park, so. I'm good with the park.
But,
Planning Commission did recommend approval of the proposed text amendment, and, like I said, they're not in order on the agenda, but, there is a special use permit application. If y'all choose to, approve the text amendment, so we can hear that, first reading on that, and then the second reading. If the text amendment does not go through, you will hear the special use application.
I wanna hear the part about, Little League.
Yeah, the applicant will be here to explain that.
Okay.
They said, like I said, they said, painting up ball fields and the times and so forth. So they hope to open up additional space for, practice.
But they're private
Yeah,
fields and they're pay to play.
they are paid to play.
Right.
All right. So now we move to the portion of public hearings, second readings.
Yeah, this is the, Porter Grove, second reading proposed PD conditions on approximately 48 acres. There's the southeast quadrant of the intersection of Old Alabama and, Porter Grove Boulevard. Since our last meeting, yeah, there'll be a list of enumerated conditions that the applicant has already proposed as part of his application that will be included if y'all chose to approve this. They have, also proposed one additional since the last meeting. They would like to add a condition that the entire project would be age targeted, occupants 55 and above. At least 50% of the units will have an occupant 55 and older pursuant to regular fair housing. They're willing to add that as an additional condition. Because there seemed to be a little discussion, hey, targeted versus, conditions is a different thing. So they are willing to, make that a condition, as part of their application. That's the only change.
Dan.
Yes.
Dan, did he just say that 50% is gonna be 55 and over?
Is that what you said, Randy? 50%,
Yes.
50, yeah, the
It
target
will be
is.
targeted to 55 and above, and they will condition it that at least 50% will be, well, one of the households would be 55 or over.
Did you hear it? At least 50?
Why would they only say 50%? Why couldn't they say that,
Housing
you
rules
know,
don't let them say 100%.
They give her any explanation as to why?
I can't explain why. I mean, staff wasn't recommended it be 55 and over. Like I said, it was previously approved with 200 and some units with no age restriction. So you'd have to ask the applicant that question.
I don't think the Fair Housing Act allows them to have it 100% at 55 plus. I think you have to have enough opportunity for everybody to move in there. I think they hold it at a certain percent.
Yeah, it may be a little more than 50%, but again,
It's something.
that's an applicant's, concession for the concern.
You have to ask that this evening to the applicant, Jason.
yeah, well, I mean, I know the applicant had said that they were willing to do the restriction of 55 and older, but they did not put that little caveat that it would only be 50% of it, which that just screams to the entire neighborhood that, yeah, we're going to, but no, we're not really going to, right? It's like, hey, if somebody that's 40 years old wants to move in here, or 30 years old, I get it. I know that there's the housing law that they can't be more than 80%, but I'll ask those questions. Hopefully I'll be there in time to do that. But did they do any, one story or anything, or did they leave it at, 300 feet, whatever it was?
Any changes in the construction?
No, I mean,
Nothing else has changed, nothing else you've heard changed based on the first reading? Okay. Nothing else has changed this one time for the first reading?
Right. Thank you.
Yeah.
same as the rest of the neighborhood.
Any more discussion on that item? Then we'll move to the, section of public hearings, that's some first readings. SU 22-03, 315.
That's a special use permit request for, cash and environmental resources to allow waste transfer stations in an industrial park on industrial park road. Y'all recall that was the planning commission didn't make a recommendation, and so it went back to the planning commission to get a recommendation. They did come back with a 4-1 recommendation for approval with conditions on that. A little bit of the history, if you weren't aware that it was previously approved at 375 Industrial Park Road as part or in combination with the medical waste site. They were breaking out the transfer facility from the medical waste site and looking to go on this site. Which is, I believe is adjacent to it. And with that, it'll be a separate operation from the medical waste site next door. There was some opposition and there was a lot of additional information sent in by the opposition, concerned about the notice violations that the applicant, some of the other applicants sites have had. The applicant did address with the planning commission. David's talked to DPD since then, and there should be somebody here to do a post in case the property owner that has concerns with the transfer facility located next to his industrial.
So is there another, transfer, waste transfer located on that area?
Not here, but this is the original site from 2019 that Indicare in partnership with Cash Environmental had special use approved for both the pharmaceutical and the waste transfer station.
Right, yeah, I remember that.
And then since then, Cash Environmental has decided they needed more space, so they pulled out of that partnership, and then now they're looking at this space here, which is the special use in front of the
So what's the,
There may be something going on in the county below it. For a transfer facility, that they don't have an acreage, I don't know.
okay, I thought there was another transfer or waste, solid waste or, another waste.
There's one across town at Riverside Drive.
I thought there was one adjacent to this
So
one.
I'm not aware of one adjacent to this. Some of these guys in the county have said that pointing fingers at each other, saying so-and-so is running a waste transfer station.
Right.
But it's in the county, and we don't have, any evidence.
What's the county zoning there in that area? Is it just all industrial?
Industrial and A1, I believe.
Okay. The second part of, S 22-04,
And that's the actual special use application that you'll hear, with government, with the text amendment, that's, Mr. Luigi will be representing the applicant on that, we'll have it going involved in, that's actual special use permit. Pretty much discussed it already.
So, next section is contracts and agreements. Agreement with Freeman and Mathis and Gary LPP.
Yes, sir, that's an agreement to assist us with updating our reasonable accommodation policy and our personnel manual.
And, number 11, TK elevator service agreement.
Yes, sir, that's our maintenance agreement with TKE, that covers all our elevators, that they have in the city.
Say it again?
Elevators that we have in the facilities in the city.
Okay. And number 12,
This is a local, the heat assistance and the water assistance program that we participated in, last year. This, through the program, so customers can receive assistance, who is paid for this.
okay, we're moving kind of quickly. Any discussion?
Sure.
This is a presentation.
Yes, so that is from, Mr. Moore and also Mr. Henderson. So we will present, they were the ones that, presented, originally when we put out the RFP. They were not chosen originally, they were the second ones, since the first one opted out. We'll allow them to present their proposal to you all tonight with,
This is for our old police station side of Main Street property.
Yeah. Okay. And bids, awards, and purchases. Number 14, the Badger Daylight Savings.
Yeah, this is, the use of a back truck, it's a wastewater plant, we put down 3 of our aeration basins, for normal maintenance, and they were full of grit and sludge. It would have been, very expensive to put our own equipment down there and clean it up. They did it in 2 days with a back truck, and now having to invoice for $8,404.
Moving right along, number 15, grit chamber repairs and parts.
Yes, so this is, one of the 2 grit chambers at the wastewater plant. They have to be basically rebuilt every 4 to 5 years. WSG and Solutions Incorporated is the sole source provider of parts for the fire exit collector. Their quote for the parts, for the repair parts for this grit collector is $49,900.
Atlanta Regional Commission payment.
Yes, so this is an annual payment, to the Atlanta Regional Commission, for us to be, party and include in attorney-client privileges and discussions regarding, water supply allocations in Lake Alabama. This is a shared expense with Bartow County. The city of Cartersville pays $50,000, Bartow County also pays another $50,000.
Switchboard cubicles.
Yes, ma'am, this is this department, correction authorization to buy 2 super cubicles, needed to serve the, Northwest District Park on, Highway 293, right across from, Chemical Products. It's kind of a sole source thing, right here, so this is the rep that covers this in 2 cubicles in Georgia. Needed 2 of them, the total price of those is $69,734.
Transformers for 175 East Main Street.
Yeah, these are transformers to serve the new apartments going up in front of Kroger. We needed 6 300 kV transformers to serve all the apartments. We received 3 bids. We were requesting to go with the transformer network. They were the lowest bid. The delivery time was a little bit longer, but based on the construction time, right now they get pretty great site. We got a couple of them on the yard. If you have any things, we can get them on temporarily. We can get them started until they're first showed up. So we went with 6 units from Transformer Network for $86,100 for the. And they have paid their, they've already paid us $142,000 of their contribution for the construction.
Transformers for Logistic Park.
Yeah, from the previous item, these are the transformers, we're doing the same job out on 293. We're not putting big transformers out there because right now they don't have the tenant, we bid copy, got 5 of them back, again, on Transport Network. They were very close, it was a few hundred bucks of being the cheapest, bid, but the delivery price, everything combined, the price ended up us rating in as the best bid overall. That was,
11,000.
yeah, the total price for 2 of them was $23,740.
And, we have 2 items to add on to the agenda tonight. Let me have copies.
Yes, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, the first item would be a deed of dedication, certificate of dedication and maintenance agreement with, Everton Estates for Phase 1 for water and sewer lines. It's our standard agreement that we have, when there's new developments. And the second one is similar, but it's a right-of-way deed of dedication for Jackson Farms Phase 1, Units 2 and 3. Similar type agreements we have with new subdivisions. And those are, again, at your seats. You have those additional agenda items.
And there's no discussion on these. And finally, in culmination of the council meeting, we have our monthly financial report. We'll wait on that.
Tom reserves his right to speak later on.
Alright, so, hey, there's no closed session?
We will. I'll call you back shortly.
Thank you.
All right, thanks.
Yeah, there will be a closed session.
Mary, I'll call you for closed session.
Okay, thanks.
Uh-huh.
All right, bye.
So that concludes the work session portion for the moment.
Mayor Pro Tem, I do recommend a closed session to discuss property disposition. Yes, I can handle it.
Second.
Second.
Oh, there's a motion on the floor to go into closed session.
Aye.
We have a second.
Right here.
All in favor?
Aye.
We go to the next level. Just in case he's not here. You want to look at the presentation? It's your turn anyway.
That one you gave me, she's got.
Yeah, I just put it on.
Keep up your work now.
Is I?
He'll be here by the meeting, but I don't know, he's gonna be on the phone with the work session. As far as I think. David, 35 years max, are you?
Yes.
Yeah, actually, I came in late and he had just finished up. I promptly responded back and said,
I'm so happy to hear about this.
If they hadn't had that, what they call an ECMO machine, he would, within about 2 days. And it just so happened that they had it because there's a real shortage of those machines. So anyway, I've been worried to death about him. I'm feeling better. I've talked to him several times. He sounds like himself. I mean, yeah. You don't have opposition from Carter Group?
Smarter. Oh, yeah.
Idiot that got upset. Oh, I'm in favor of it, but, and then he was
Christmas
wanting to protect it. I thought, sit down, fool.
What do you? That whole loan and money for college thing, I just don't think we should be doing money paid for college business. That's could be a huge endeavor.
Well,
For an expense we have no idea what it could be every single year.
let's hear his capital. 2 sons. It's on track to win the now.
That's not the condition though, is it? It's for work. I would say even then, I would prefer that we loan it. Not give it.
You know, what I understood in trade, everything was gonna be one star. Am I wrong?
You have the Lucky and Sidewalk?
What kind of house restrictions? on
Yes,
the
I have the cross.
height?
I'm gonna make a motion on that.
Yeah. I think that's unreasonable. I think Randy would recommend it. He could work with it.
I just don't think without what's
A lot of guys have
having all the other responsibilities we've got, that's just one more thing.
Oh, I remember, I told somebody, I got
Yeah.
a
one more thing we
I
actually
was
need.
hired by a company that bought a bunch of old mobile home parks. Did they call me? Yeah, yeah, now they sent me, I got a stack of documents like this.
So one of them requires.
Yeah, but we're already giving an extra week of vacation, we're already giving all this stuff. I think that's sufficient. I just don't think we need to add on top of
I'll
that.
get somebody to drop it by, and I told, when the guy told me about it, I said, listen, we plan on retiring.
I'm fine with
It's
it,
my
I'm
two
fine
cents.
with it being digitally signed, which I'm not, and I said, but it can't be on the 10th, it can't be before we even approve it. No, I've already talked to her, It was from, it was this
I'll
one.
get
Oh,
Stacy
that's Dan.
to drop a stack of
It was
stuff.
the, Freeman Matheson
By
here.
your office. Because they printed up, I couldn't believe
Yes,
I've been
yes.
trying to see
So
what they got.
it's supposed to go before the board tonight, but it's already been, because I went to print it out and I'm like, well, that's already signed. Oh, it's been signed on the 10th of October. I'm like, we gotta change that.
Well,
Okay,
it'll be helpful.
okay. Do you have more than one of these? Okay, so you want Matt to sign here, and then I can test it,
You know,
okay.
when they talked about it before, I
I
think
got
they
you,
realized.
then they are there.
Randy made a point that
Okay,
this is a lot better than what we've done in the
Okay.
plan. I mean, this is a lot, this is an improvement on what's already been approved. And I think they know.
okay, when that, yeah, are you gonna say that? Okay, thank you.
Well,
My two cents.
Yeah, cause I'll put that in my minutes.
What's up, Rainey?
Okay.
I bet you are.
You're fine.
Me too, I've been
So
going since 6
mine, same with, I told him just to give us a mixed chips. Mine had salt and vinegar
still not
potato
done.
chips in
When I
it.
leave here, I'm still
And so
not
my
done.
breath was like,
Well, we're done.
I've been over
We're
eating
done.
mints. They are good, but not good about cold apple. I'm good, I'm
I feel
good.
like he's the real deal, he'll do what he said.
Fun times.
I'll have him sign here.
You know, I was shocked.
And then I'll just,
That
you
Greg
told me to
Shaw
attest it right below.
voted in
Okay?
favor of Kathy. Well,
Yeah.
exactly like
Yeah.
he
My husband says I'm gonna behave.
cross-examined.
Yeah. Because I tried to pull it up and said I committed it and it wouldn't let me. It wasn't a PDF.
Saturday night, yesterday.
Yeah. It had like transcripted to where you couldn't make it
I told him
change.
that was rude.
Like this can't be, he gave me 2 paragraphs, and he like, can we edit it?
Oh,
So
yeah.
I was like, yeah, whatever.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Anyway, I think you'll be all right with this. Hell, I don't know what they
We had a lot of fun last meeting. I was hoping we could skip fun. Of course.
I mean,
Isn't that the way it works?
I'd like to, still, 5 minutes.
That's council.
What they were doing without, I mean, I'd prefer it to be 55 up, but, I mean, I was. What they're doing, I think that's not fine.
He said, we don't know them. Yes, but we don't. So Randy, on this, what's the, is that kind of simmered down?
Is it 80%? Is that the cutoff mark?
Right. I wonder if that same guy's gonna be like, but he might not. You never can tell what he's gonna do. That's what I told, Dan earlier. I said, it's Tennessee Street Project. Everybody said, no, we're so excited, we're so excited. I said, wait, make you worry about. Or we should start voting against the agenda again, we're supposed to be up on this vote.
Right.
Because I want to take somebody's 2 foot and put sidewalk. Yeah.
What about 75? To do that if it's at 75%?
It will be. I know, we've been up here long enough, haven't we, Randy?
Huh? What's that?
Still not sure.
For what?
We
I'll
need to
text you,
hurry.
let you know.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, I'm
I'll
fine with
text
it.
you the
I mean, it
results.
sounded to me like people who live there are all good with it. And I highly doubt they're gonna, if we agree to this, that they're gonna up and change their plan for development. So, I mean, I'm fine with it.
I could eat 2 of it, or probably 3 of them.
All those are left over to go get some more, because I
Instead
ordered
of 4, you may want
the mayor, Gary's not here, so there's 3, that's still gonna be sitting over
I
there.
got Zaxby's waiting on me. The whole time y'all up here, you're
He said he'd be here by 6:30, but it's 6:56.
You must say good to them.
And I think he was the host of that, so he was hosting. All I know is this cold weather's already got me wanting to go back to the beach. Need some warm weather and some pina coladas.
I don't even need one right there. Cold weather, I'm just gonna be with
I don't even know where opinion
Well, that's pina coladas is free. Up there's our mayor.
There you go, Maria. Good.
Hey, man.
Can we combine these 3 together for a motion to do a second?
Yep.
Actually, I think you can combine. I don't think that one.
Not that one.
Yeah, these 3, I mean. I think your substitute just showed up over there.
Oh, perfect.
Calvin says no.
Outstanding.
Hey, how you doing? How you doing, Rick?
Seven. Okay, Gary, can you hear me?
Sure, absolutely.
Gary.
I'll definitely listen to what you got to say, for sure.
Gary.
You got everything under control?
Everything's done with.
How about I sit here and you sit down?
I don't know what the planning commission came up with.
Okay.
I know there's like
Okay, Gary, can you hear me?
A couple
restrictions as far as.
Gary, can you hear me?
I haven't seen those yet.
Okay, thank you.
Well, actually, I reviewed them, but they're going to go back up again today. And, you know, I would imagine that anything that's passed will be as much restrictions, but I'll be happy to promote them. Definitely going to do this as well.
Well, yeah, a couple of them, we have a planning commission meeting, hour and a half long.
Did you get it right?
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I'll definitely want to hear both sides. So, I appreciate it.
Yeah, I've got Gary on here. Oh, does he want us to call him?
I agree. 770-4048.
I think he's specialty shop my phone. Who's the experience?
Okay, I don't feel so bad.
You think about
I don't feel so bad.
the intoxication problem.
It's not really good. I mean, I feel like we're losing
Jake?
track of the first place.
Oh, okay, so
Carrie,
Jason's voicemail.
y'all have the pledge and invocation.
So how do I make up from just looking
I think
at
that's part of it too, still.
here? I might have to
Okay.
call you back.
I mean,
I don't know who's
I'm not a
doing the
drinker,
pledge.
I don't like mixing.
You want me to do it?
Yeah, hang up on the
Call Jason.
Yeah.
Calvin, did you ask anybody to pledge? Okay.
There you go.
770-606.
Oh, there it is.
We're waiting for, are both Gary and Jace gonna be on the line?
Yes.
I know you're working on it, okay.
Oh, we got, oh, I'm sorry. I don't know how to use the phone.
Is it a rotary dial or what?
I know how to use one of those.
As long as you're not calling it Siri, I think you'll be okay.
They business is not under the it's automatically changed to a specialty shop. It's all privileged.
All right, Jason, we're gonna put you on hold and get Gary on the phone. Hold on.
Thank you.
Let's see.
Now, hit conference.
Therefore, wait till he
Hope
answers.
Jason make it out.
That's why I didn't know last time.
See some of them.
Hey, this is Gary Fox. I'll be out of the office until Monday, October 31st.
You're the one we visited.
Call us.
Did you go visit the
Hold on,
guy?
Jason. I gotta call Gary again.
Send over there now.
Call his cell?
Yeah,
Is that his cell number?
yes. Yeah.
It should be a different clientele for everything though. It seems like you have to talk to business. Talk to marketing.
Hello?
Hey, Gary.
Hey,
Okay, hold on just a moment. Okay, Gary,
yes.
Chase,
Yes, ma'am.
hallelujah, we can start. Or whenever the mayor's going to start.
Well, I mean, Julia, since you seem to be running the meeting tonight, we'll go ahead and do that. Good evening. I'll call this meeting of the Cartersville City Council to order. If you'll please stand for our invocation and pledge.
Join me as we pray. Our dear gracious Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day. We thank you for the beautiful weather that you brought us today as we enter into the fall season. And we thank you for this opportunity to come again and do the business of the city of Cartersville. Thank you for this opportunity to live in this great country and in this great state. Go before us now as we do this work, and we'll give you the praise and glory for all that's done and said. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Please join the pledge. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Liberty and justice.
Ms. Drake, the roll, please.
Carrie Hodge, Ward 1.
Here.
Jay Stepp, Ward 2.
Here.
Carrie Roth, Ward 3.
Here.
Calvin Cooley, Ward 4.
Here.
Gary Fox, Ward 5.
Here.
Tack Green, Ward 6.
here.
Thank you, Julia, for that. Good evening, everybody. And Jace is caught in a really bad traffic jam, so Gary is on business and decided to join us via phone, so we appreciate their commitment to doing that. And we'll get about the business of the city tonight. Our first order of business is the approval of our council meeting minutes from October the 6th. And council, you've had an opportunity to review these. Now would be the time to make any changes. If there are none to be had, a motion would be in order.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Mr. Porter, you have I'm guessing that's going to be you, a series of second readings of ordinances.
Yes, Mayor. The first one on their second reading is the employee annual accrual, annual leave amendment. What this does, if approved, will expedite the employee. Right now, at 3 weeks vacation accrual starts after year number 8. I'm asking for that to be changed to starting at year number 6. 4 weeks accrual start year number 11 of the employee's tenure, and 5 weeks vacation accrual will start year 16. This will be an extra benefit for our employees and also another recruitment tool for us to hire additional personnel.
Okay, is there any questions or discussion on this item? And if there are none, a motion is in order.
Motion to approve?
Second.
All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Sorry. Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Next item, Dan.
Yes, sir. As the parental leave, this is another item that we'd like to have for recruitment and retention of our employees. Essentially, this would offer a maternity leave for a female employee for birth of a child or adoption for 4 weeks paid leave, and for a male employee for birth of a child or adoption for 2 weeks of paid leave.
Again, any questions of staff or any discussion amongst council be had? If there's none, a motion is in order.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Motion carries unanimously. Next item, please, Dan.
Yes, Mayor. This is the Educational Assistance Program. This would be another, again, a recruitment and retention tool for us, basically offering employees an opportunity to grow in their field within the city. And if they want to move within another department of the city, getting either associate's, a bachelor's, or master's degree gives them an opportunity to have some of those costs paid for by the city. That will be budgeted annually, but I do recommend approval of this ordinance.
Okay. Questions for Mr. Porta or anybody on staff on this item?
This is just one, this is just one set fund that's taken out of
It'd be budgeted annually, so if somebody in Derek's department of electric, it would come out of electric fund. Basically where the employee is based out of, what they're looking for. City, if engineer, somebody wanted to grow within his department and go to engineering, then it would come out of the water fund, be budgeted annually.
But there would be caps. So for instance, once that ceiling is reached, then somebody would have to wait, or we would come back before council to see if we want to do it.
That is correct. It'd be budgeted annually, it'd be amount approved annually in the budget to say this is how much we have available.
Okay. Any other questions or discussion? If there's none, a motion is in order.
I'll make a motion to deny this.
Okay, motion to deny. Does anybody have a second? And motion dies from lack of a second. Are there any other motions?
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 And any opposed, like sign. Motion carries 5-1. Next item, please. Next item. Thank you, Randy. And I apologize if I'm jumping. I was not at the work session. I had a chamber event that I just finished moments ago, so.
All right, thank you, Mayor and Council. This is a second reading of a proposed text amendment to the alcohol ordinance section dealing with specialty shops. The applicant is requesting to allow distilled spirits to be served in addition to the beer and wine that's already allowed. If you recall, they came in several months ago with a different request that included this, and it didn't. A portion of it got through dealing with craft beer. That was resolved, but the percentage of sales portion was dropped by the applicant, and he did resubmit to the Alcohol Control Board to allow the distilled spirits portion. With that, didn't show up at the Alcohol Control Board meeting. The Alcohol Control Board did recommend denial of this application. We've had a little bit of discussion in the work session and prior to that on this, but with that, right now there have been no changes since the first reading.
Okay. Questions for Randy at this time? And thank you. I'll note I sent an email to council today requesting, I can't put, I don't know that I can in the form of I can't do motions, so sent an email asking that the condition would be put on for specialty shops, if council were to consider this, that it would be requiring that a business would have to have their beer and wine license, and then that that to add the liquor component of it, that it would need to be 75%, which is currently at 65 for beer and wine. So again, in my mind, it kind of provides a level of safeguard regarding maybe any unintended consequences that, you know, a company that's selling mostly retail have a little bit higher threshold for the liquor that would perhaps assuage some concerns that some people may have. Now, that being said, I don't, as we learned last week, I have very little knowledge of which way y'all are going to go on things at times, and I have no idea if this is something council wants to consider or doesn't want to consider. So I'll leave it at that, and if council needs any discussion or has any questions for the applicant is here. And I guess I'll ask if the applicant would like to make any comment, anything new from the last time you presented to us. If you'll step forward and give your name and your address for us, please.
Mayor and Council, Jason Frederick, 39 South Public Square, Cartersville, 30120. Hey guys and ladies, the statement I wanted to make was he had mentioned us not showing up for the alcohol board. Well, there's two reasons. One was a mistake on the time. The other reason is we were told point blank by the head of the alcohol board that we don't believe you should have an alcohol license, period, and we don't like your ordinance. So showing up to the alcohol board after that, what good's it going to do me? I mean, he publicly made his mind up. Now, our first trip to the alcohol board, they were for it. We had 3 yeses and 2 nos, with the head of the board voting no because there was 2 absences. So that's why I didn't move forward. It goes back to the alcohol board. It flipped. We had 4 no's and 1 yes. Well, after the head of the board made it very clear he was not for that ordinance existing, much less serving alcohol, I don't think it hurt or helped us not being there that morning, honestly. So that's to clarify the statement about us missing that meeting. Honest mistake. Thought it was at 7 p.m., not 10 a.m. But after the way we were handled the first meeting, I really don't feel like it would have made a difference either way. So that's what I wanted to say about that. Also, I did have a chance to talk to some of you guys individually, and I appreciate the time you gave us to talk, to get to know us, our reasoning, the head, the hearts behind it, the request, and I'm open to any questions that you may have.
Thoughts about the 75% stipulation?
My name is Buddy Frederick, 39 South Public Square, Cartersville, Georgia 30120. To answer your question, Mr. Mayor, we would consider that, certainly. I don't know at what point. Right now, it wouldn't hurt us at all. I think it would be fine to consider doing that. Down the road, we may have to come back and see you, but right now, it wouldn't be an issue. So we're, as of right now, for our third quarter, we're at 12.4%.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Do you have a question, Mr. Bush?
Wouldn't that have to go back before, if you, since their application does not address percentage, if you were to add a percentage, shouldn't that go back to the Alcohol Control Board because you're actually adding something that is not in the application?
Well, my thought would be we add conditions, we could add conditions here on property and it doesn't have to go back before the Planning Commission.
Yeah, the alcohol, they recommend denial of the application, so.
Well, I think it's a waste of time to send it back. From
Second
what he
that.
said, but.
All in favor of
but I'm
that?
just raising, you know, it's the concern I've got. I don't really care what you do.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any
All
other
right.
questions for us?
Any other questions for the applicant? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, council, it's in your hands.
Matt, can I ask you a question?
Go right ahead, Jace.
So, the distilled spirit is still a license that you would have to buy above and beyond what else, you already have, right? And so if you bought that, what you're trying to say is you'd have different percentages. Right now they have 65% for craft beer and then the beer and wine. For distilled spirits, what you're saying is on any of these specialty shops, it would be 75%.
That's what I would prefer,
Is that right?
yes.
I like that. I think that's good.
I do too. Would you like to put that in the form of a motion, Counselor?
Yes, that is a motion to approve with the stipulation for the distilled spirits to be at 75%. Second.
So, wait.
All right, well, we got a motion and a second, but we can still have discussion. Go ahead, Councilman.
So the percentage is 75% of non-alcohol sales and 25% of alcohol sales.
That is correct.
Okay.
Any other discussion? All right, we do have a motion and a second. If there's no other discussion, all in favor, raise your right hand and say aye.
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 I got an opposed like sign.
No.
Motion carries 4-2. All right, we have next item T2204.
Thank you again, Mayor and Council. This is a proposed text amendment to the zoning ordinance. The applicant is looking to amend the office commercial zoning district to allow private parks as a special use permit or with a special use permit. Private parks are currently allowed in other zoning districts, R20 single family residential and so forth by right. The applicant is proposing in a subsequent application after this text amendment is heard for a special use on a piece of property located off of West Avenue, kind of back behind Ingalls on a 34-acre tract.
Ciao.
Again, that is a separate application, but it is directly related to this proposed text amendment. Their applicant is looking to provide a private park or fields for Little League or for youth baseball. With that, it will be a pay-to-play type facility. The Planning Commission did hear the application and they did recommend approval. And again, item number 9 on your agenda is the actual special use. And come second reading, if you choose to move forward with the text amendment, then you would hear the special use permit application also.
Okay. And when I looked, I couldn't tell. Are they proposing there to be lights on that at this point? I guess we can wait till the public hearing.
Yeah, we could wait for the special use application as part of the text amendment. No,
that's right. That wouldn't be part of this. I apologize.
But I did ask that question after the Planning Commission meeting, and at that time they were not, but they weren't restricted if in the future they chose to do lighting.
Okay. Thank you. I'm sorry, a little premature with that question. All right. Any questions for Randy at this point about T24-04?
I have one question.
Yes, sir.
I can clarify. On the applicant it says ball fields, but you keep mentioning Little League fields. There's a distinction.
Youth baseball fields. I probably shouldn't have used the word Little League.
Don't use Little League as a distinction, and you're making a problem.
Yeah, I apologize. I did say Little League. I meant youth, youth ball fields.
Okay.
I think the applicant's here. I'm not sure.
All right.
The applicant is here.
At this time, I'll open up, if there's nothing else for Mr. Menino. Welcome, Councilman. I'll open up a public hearing for T22-04 and ask anybody wishing to step forward and speak for or against to do so at this time. And again, your name and your address, please.
Hi, Lauren Knoll, 114 Old Mill Road. I'm with Southland Engineering. So I would just want to appreciate and thank you for hearing our case tonight. Our client is requesting a text amendment to be made to the OC Office Commercial Zoning District to include the use of private parks. Our proposed development will be for the use of a private ball field, specifically for youth and specifically for practice fields. This area is within a floodplain, and so it just makes sense for the landowner to make this use for this proposed use ball field. And not to mention, it is beneficial to the commercial district to use this text amendment to include private parks, because more and more are we seeing today the use of parks and athletics associated with commercial areas, because more people want to be involved and have close proximity to these types of amenities around in their community.
Okay.
So at the moment, if you have any questions for me, I'll be happy to answer.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Once again, discussing the text amendment T 22-04. Again, anybody wish to step forward, speak for or against, may do so at this time. And seeing none, I'll close the public hearing for T 22-04. Council will have a second reading and take this up for consideration at our first meeting in November. That is November the 3rd. Thank you. All right, we'll move on to Z 22-03.
Thank you again, Mayor and Council. This is actually a second reading. We've had thorough discussion on this during the previous meeting. It's a proposed planned development or PD zoning district with conditions proposed to be PD with different conditions. It's located in the southeast quadrant of their section of Old Alabama and Carter Grove Boulevard, approximately a 48-acre tract, currently approved for approximately 220 townhomes in a mixed-use type development. The applicant's proposing approximately 165 duplex and triplex units. Since the first reading, as part of the application, the applicant has provided a list of things that will be included as conditions on that development as part of the application or letter that they submitted with the initial package that was submitted. If you recall, they had proposed doing clubhouse, swimming pool, pickleball courts, targeting 55 and older age group. With that, since the first reading, they did submit an additional condition they would like to include as part of the application, dealing directly with age targeted and age restricted. And the condition they had submitted reads as follows: the entire project will be age targeted to occupants 55 and above, and at least 50% of the units will have an occupant 55 or older pursuant to the federal fair housing rules. So they did bring that and change. That is the one change since the first reading. And with that, the applicant is here if we have any additional questions.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Menino at this point? All right, I'll open up a public hearing for Z 22-03, and again, ask anybody wishing to step forward, speak for or against, to do so at this time. Good evening, Mr. Bowen.
Good evening, Brandon Bowen, 15 South Public Square. Happy to be with you all this evening. So the only things I'm going to address right now are the couple issues that have come up recently. One is the condition. I drafted the proposed condition that it be age targeted, and that each unit have at least one resident that is 55 or older, 50% of those units rather. The reason I chose that language is because we're dealing with the Fair Housing Act. It allows you to, well, if you're going to tell someone they can't live here because they're not 55, then we have to have 80% in there. Now, my clients want to do this type of business. They are willing to do a restriction that will make you comfortable. But the concern I have is that if we follow that strict 80% rule and there's any deviation, they're going to get sued under the Fair Housing Act, and because it's a condition of zoning, the city's going to be part of that too. And so I backed that down to 50% to give us some leeway and to avoid enforcement nightmares. If you feel that it needs to be higher to make you comfortable, then, you know, we can live with that. But that said, no other development in Carter Grove is subject to that restriction, just this one. As far as height, they do wish to build single-story buildings. Now, single-story buildings don't necessarily result in buildings that are 10 feet tall. You know, they would be, you know, whatever, 20 feet tall or something like that. We would like to be able to put the clubhouse bigger than that. So what we would propose is that I think the existing existing condition that allows for, am I right, at 45 feet?
45.
Yeah, we're happy for that to go away and just be treated like any other single family in the city, which I believe is 35 feet.
Okay.
And those are the two things that I wanted to speak about tonight, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have. And my client's here as well if you have any questions for them.
Anybody have questions? Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Mr. Mino, if you'll step forward, I got a question for you relative to that. Relative to the clubhouse, I'm guessing administratively, if they design a clubhouse that's taller than 35 feet, y'all can decide whatever is reasonable, or does that need to be stipulated in the PUD?
You probably want to stipulate it in the PUD.
Okay. But that's, I mean, something as they work with you.
Oh, yeah,
they develop
yeah,
that
it would
plan,
come
that
through
would
the,
happen.
it would come
And
through the
so,
plan review process,
I mean,
and we
how-
would go through the list. It'd be a standard review.
And if
with-
it's a single-story clubhouse, I know I'm kind of bouncing people back and forth, but I mean, would that be, we talking 50 feet for one of the structures? Are we talking 60? Do you have any idea what a normal expectation that would be? Or I can ask.
35 feet's the max height in a typical residential development, and that includes two-story homes.
So that would include the clubhouse?
So that would
not be
include the
taller than that as well?
clubhouse,
Okay.
and I think it would,
Gotcha.
it would work.
All right. Thank you. I'm guessing that's agreeable. Okay, thank you. Again, we're in a public hearing for Z22-03 and asking anybody who wishes to step forward to speak for or against to do so at this time. And seeing none, I will turn it over to council for consideration after closing that public hearing.
I'd like to approve with the 50% at 55 or older and reducing it to 35 feet.
Second.
Just so I'm clear, does that doesn't age restrict it? That's the condition that they agreed to, is that correct? Okay.
50% is age restricted to 55 and older.
Thank you, okay. All right, so we got a motion and a second. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Motion carries unanimously. All right, we'll move on to SU 22-03, the first reading.
Thank you again, Mayor and Council. This is a proposed solid waste transfer facility with a special use application located at 315 Industrial Park Road. If you recall, back in 2019, the applicant, along with another applicant, came in with a proposed transfer station and medical waste disposal facility. They're looking to separate that out now on the adjacent property. With that, they've made a new application, went back through Planning Commission twice, actually, back to the Planning Commission. The first time they actually didn't, the Planning Commission didn't make a recommendation, and we had them hear it again, and after that, they did make a recommendation for approval 4-1 with a list of 6 conditions that are included in your package. There was a lot of discussion with the Planning Commission about some concerns that came out from some opposition dealing with notice of violations from the EPD. The applicant did address those with the Planning Commission. Staff has contacted the EPD about that. With that, again, the Planning Commission did recommend approval of this application.
Okay, thank you. Questions for Randy at this time?
So are these, should have asked this earlier, but the Planning Commission recommended approval with the following conditions, and are all those conditions the applicant has brought those or approved?
Yes, after addressing or hearing some of the concerns, they did bring those conditions forward, and they are fully aware of them, and they actually brought them forward.
Thank you.
Okay.
And again, the previous application from 2019 did not have those conditions. The biggest concern back then was the medical waste facility, and we never addressed the transfer facility.
Okay, thank you. I'll open up a public hearing for SU 22-03 and ask anybody who wishes to step forward for or against to step forward at this time.
Good evening again.
Hello again.
Brandon Bowen, 15 South Public Square. I'm here tonight on behalf of Cash Environmental Services. We've got Kevin Cash here, as well as Howard Smith, who is the owner of the property. So I was here before you in 2019, shortly before COVID. I think you unanimously approved a pharmaceutical waste facility and transfer station. As far as I know, the pharmaceutical waste is still going forward. Cash Environmental was going to operate the transfer station component, and going through the site development process, they've just decided it's too tight to do it all on one spot. Mr. Smith's property was available, and so the idea is, well, we'll expand onto that. But of course, to do that, the special use permit you granted in 2019 doesn't cover Mr. Smith's property, so we have to come back. But it's the same use that we brought to you there. The pharmaceutical waste is not a component of this on Mr. Smith's property. That will stay on the first site, which is next door. So, as you know, this is in the industrial park. All the property out here is zoned heavy industrial, at least all the city property is, and it's all used as a heavy industrial area. It's a heavy industrial park. It is what it is. I'll ask Mr. Cash to give you a little bit of knowledge about how they operate their business. But we do want to address some concerns that had been raised, that were raised in writing. One, there was concerns about dust. It's the same operation that we were talking about in 2019. They will take measures to control the dust, and that's not going to be an issue. As far as odors, the concerns like that can be with transfer stations, the EPD has regulations to control that, and Mr. Cash will talk to you about how they will operate to control that issue. No hazardous waste stops at this facility. As you know, the way a transfer station works is a garbage truck brings waste in, or a contractor brings it in, and it gets loaded into, or sorted and loaded into a tractor trailer to take to a landfill. So the Cashes have a C&D landfill in Pickens County. So the expectation is that most of this waste will be C&D to serve their existing landfill. That's the business model that makes sense for them. However, sometimes customers come and they have C&D and MSW waste. And so they want to have that to incentivize their customers to come to them instead of going to some other land or some other transfer station that has both. That's the reason for having both. No hazardous waste or anything of that nature. We do anticipate that there would be some synergy with the existing facility as far as maybe shared scales, shared routing, things like that. So I want to address some of the issues that were raised with the expectation that they will be raised later in this hearing. One, there was a concern that what impact would this have on waste in the county, and specifically the county's landfill. I spoke with Rip Connor with the county. He actually submitted a letter that's in the file. He explained that this is actually likely to extend the life of the county landfill because it's going to lead to waste going out of the county, not into the county. So that's not a concern. We had some folks who spoke who frankly wish to compete with us and maybe bring an application in the county in the near future. I don't know what to say about that. The big issue was notice of violations. If you have in the file a number of notices of violations that were submitted to Cash from the EPD. It is my understanding that that is every single notice of violation that they have received in their decades of operation. And that they have all, at least all that involve Cash, have all been resolved. And I think Mr. Hardigree spoke with the EPD agent who confirmed that they have all been resolved successfully. Some of them sound terrible. For instance, one is illegal operation of a landfill or operating an unlicensed landfill. That sounds terrible, right? But what it was is Cash was operating a facility and they had an internal transfer of the between entities from the one that had the permit to another one. Not same people, but it's a different corporate entity. They should have filed a notice promptly, I think within 30 days with the EPD, but more than 30 days passed, they didn't file it. There was inspection, it was discovered, and so they got a notice of violation that they were operating an illegal landfill. It's the same one that was permitted, just a different entity. So that's all been resolved, and it's not like there is a landfill going on out there that was being hidden away from everybody. They're also, you may hear this, they are currently in Chapter 11 bankruptcy. Now, we've talked to the Planning Commission a great deal about this. There's a bunch of different types of bankruptcy. There is the I don't have any money left and I need help. There is also we need help, a business needs help restructuring what I call the Delta bankruptcy. Everybody remembers when Delta went bankrupt a couple decades ago. Planes kept flying. that is exactly what the situation is here. I understand the bankruptcy attorney had the opportunity to talk to Mr. Archer and to kind of explain all that, so hopefully if there's anything wrong in what I said, he can, he can correct that. So that said, I want to turn the floor over to Mr. Cash and let him tell you exactly what he wants to operate, and then also want to give Howard Smith the opportunity to speak a little bit, as he is the property owner and will be the landlord throughout this process. If there is any time left, I'd like to use it in rebuttal. Thank you.
Thank you. Before you come forward, Mr. Cash, Mr. Mino, I'm going to call on you again and ask, relative to the criteria that council's to consider when it comes to a special use, is financial, is there any one of those guidelines relative to financial consideration?
No.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Cash.
Thank you, Council. Kevin Cash, 558 Faith Street, Marietta. So as Brandon's already explained, we have 4 notices of violation that were received in the December, January, February timeframe. And as he also mentioned, we were in the middle of a transfer of ownership of both our landfill, which has been around since the early 2000s, in Talking Rock, Georgia, which is in Pickens County, up 515, and the transfer stations that serve that. One of the notices of violation had to do with financial assurance. The landfill at that time was assured with the state EDP through a mechanism, a trust mechanism, and it was the intent to change that mechanism to a bond mechanism after the close of the landfill. The close got delayed a little bit, and we got this notice of violation because we had gone past the deadline. We requested an extension of that deadline from the state. We received that extension, and then we caught up or made right with the additional financial assurance. Just to clarify, there was financial assurance in place, but every year the EDP does a review to look at what the current volume is of the landfill to determine how much additional financial assurance might be required, either because of inflation or because there's a larger volume of the landfill that needs closure. So that was one of the NOVs. It was connected with the time frame of the close. 2 of the transfer stations fell into similar kinds of situations where, as Brandon mentioned, we did not get permit by rule applications in time. And as I mentioned to the Planning and Zoning Committee, it's not my intent to make light of the need to timely submit documents to the EDP. It's not my intent. It is my desire, though, to explain what it was. It was a bureaucratic oversight on our part that resulted in some of that. The other things, and again, I mentioned this to Planning and Zoning as well, we did receive an NOV at a Woodstock location for waste that was outside of the cover of the transfer station. There's no great excuse for that one on our part. It was a failure, it was an operational failure on our part. It needed to be cleaned up. It had not been a long-standing problem, but the day the inspector came, it didn't look the way that it should. We acknowledged that, we cleaned it up, we took care of that.
How many of those have you had in your time in business?
Those 4 are it.
Okay.
Yeah, those 4 are it. And to give you some sense of time in business, my cousin is the owner of Cash Environmental Resources, and my father and his father built the landfill and the first transfer station in Smyrna in 1980. So we've been around for quite a while. And this is not the way that we do business. So those are the primary ones. There's one other that is again, we take all of these things seriously, but there's one other one, a transfer station that we purchased at the same time that we changed over the ownership of the landfill. This one's in Blairsville. There had been some storm damage to a roof. The roof ended up being removed just at the time that we were closing on the landfill. The inspector came and found an unroofed transfer station. We were of the understanding that that was going to be handled through an insurance claim with the seller. That turned out not to be the case, so we, at our expense, replaced the roof. And I have photographs of, and as Mr. Hardigree, I think, as heard, all those things have been addressed. I do want to address the bankruptcy because I understand that word. It certainly is an ominous word, and I can tell you from our experience, it's not a fun experience to be a part of. But as Brandon mentioned, it is a restructure. Our funding source out of Detroit put us into a technical default, which is not a financial situation, and made some demands on us, financial demands that were just untenable for us at the time, forced us to take this measure as an opportunity to restructure, and so we are in the process of that. Nothing that was done was related to solvency or anything like that. So we're taking advantage of that opportunity to restructure. I know there are some other concerns. I know there are concerns anytime that anybody touches or moves waste of any kind, and so I'm happy to address any of the things that have already been mentioned or any other concerns that you have.
I think we're good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Smith, before you step forward, I have a question for Mr. Hardigree. Mr. Bowen had mentioned earlier that you had spoken with the EPD. I just want to verify that you did have that conversation, what you were told.
Yes, I did. I spoke with two representatives with EPD. They're the two representatives that issued the letters of violation. It was Jason Rogers and Serena Brusca. Jason was involved with with Union County, Cherokee County, and Fannin County landfills. Serena was involved with the Pickens County landfill. They both said that the Union County, Fannin County, and the Pickens County violations had been corrected, and those files have been closed out. The one open file they still had was for Cherokee County, and what they pointed to was some type of resolution that was needed between Cash Environmental and Cherokee County themselves between some type of misunderstanding in their contract obligation. But they expected as soon as that local disagreement was worked out between the two, then EPD would be able to close out their file.
Okay.
Just a matter of a local dispute there.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Smith?
Thank you. My name's Howard Smith, 25 Stonewall Street. I'd like to address some of the concerns that came up in the Planning Commission meeting. David, if you would turn that PowerPoint on. Thank you. Next screen, please. So these are the type buildings you might find in a new transfer station. Next slide, please. Go back one. Yeah, there you go. So there was some opposition from some neighboring property owners to the south of us, implying that this transfer station is going to decrease the value of their property. This is one of those properties located on Guyton Drive, owned by Rice Investments, and you'll see that it's currently being operated as a wood recycling center. Those are piles of mulch on the left, that's scrap wood in the middle, and piles of logs on the right. Not sure how we're going to depreciate that. Next screen. Between our property and the Rice property is a 700-foot floodplain buffer that separates the usable properties on both properties. That's over 2 football fields. Next screen, please. Beyond that, it's over 2,200 feet from the edge of our usable property to where the road ends on the Rice property. So that's over a half mile. And it's like Brandon said, we recently learned that this Rice property is now being submitted to the county for a transfer station. So I thought that was interesting. Next screen, please. This is Jimmy Crane's property. Jimmy opposed us, saying we were going to depreciate his property on Peoples Valley Road. You'll see that there are unfinished buildings, there are abandoned vehicles, some have not moved in years. Not really sure how we're going to depreciate that property, but he had a concern. Next screen, please. So you have a letter in your packet from Ms. Goolsby, who is objecting to this center. And in her letter, she states that before she purchased her property, she evaluated the zoning and the uses in the surrounding area. Her property, our property, and all the properties I'm going to show you are zoned heavy industrial, which allows for a transfer station with a permit. Additionally, I want to kind of give you a flavor of the neighborhood out there, just so you'll know what type of uses are typical in this area. This first screen is USA Ready Mix. It's a concrete plant. They have a gravel apron and parking area. Big trucks come in and out every day. There's dust, but nobody really complains. Next screen, please. This is Schnitzer Recycling. This is a salvage scrapyard located on Industrial Park Road. Piles of metal sit out there uncovered daily. What's interesting about this is I have a building out there also similar to Miss Goolsby's. I have tenants in it. My building is right next to this scrapyard. I've had tenants in there for 17 years. They drive out of my building every day and look at this scrapyard, no complaints. Next slide, please. This is Absolute Environmental. Their line of business is septic tank, sewer line, and wastewater treatment, pumping, and disposal. Now, there's nothing wrong with any of these businesses. They serve a need in our community. They do business just like everybody else, but these are the type of businesses that are out there. And so really what we're proposing, we feel is not much different than what's already in the area. Next slide, please. This is Agtran. They bring in aggregate material, rocks, sand, on trains, goes out on big trucks. It's dusty, it's on the ground. But again, that's how the neighborhood is out there. Next screen, please. All right, so this slide shows the property line of Miss Goolsby's property and the subject property we have, where we want to put where the Cashes want to put the transfer station. The top photos show if you were behind her building, looking out onto the property, and you'll see that there's quite a bit of natural vegetation there, trees, bushes. There's really a visual buffer already in place. If you look at the bottom pictures, you'll see that that extends nearly 20 feet off the fence until you get to the property line. We want to enhance that a little bit, so I'll talk about that later, but just want to give you an idea of what it looks like on the property line between the two properties. Next slide, please. You've got some pictures in your packet of the landfill, or excuse me, the transfer station violations. There is no way that the city of Cartersville would permit or allow a transfer station like you guys have seen in those photos. Anything the Cashes build is going to be subject to current development and development regulations and rules. So they can't just go out and scrape dirt and start pouring trash. Even if you grant the permit tonight, the city of Cartersville will have planning process and approval rights before they can go out there and start moving dirt. So what this slide shows is a current transfer station located at 125 Riverside Drive. It's in the top left corner. These other photos represent businesses that are in close proximity to the transfer station. In fact, they all have a driveway that shares the same cul-de-sac. So businesses can and do operate around transfer stations. Next slide, please. There's also a claim that there's going to be unmanaged wastewater and stormwater running from this transfer station onto neighboring properties. The city of Cartersville does not allow you to dump stormwater or wastewater on neighboring properties. That's part of the plan review process to make sure that water is contained in detention ponds and graves or this and that. So they can't go out there and start dumping water on people next door. The reason I wanted to show you this slide is that the transfer station at 125 Riverside Drive is located 375 feet from the Etowah River. Everybody in this room knows how many people fish, boat, canoe, tube down the river every weekend. We also know how nice and expensive some of the homes are just downstream from this transfer station. I don't know of any complaints or water quality problems we've had on the Etowah River because of this transfer station. Next slide, please. The transfer station that the Cashes are proposing will be over 530 feet from the nearest creek at the south of the property. Next slide, please. So we as the landowner, we don't want any problems either. So we collaborated with the Cashes and said after after some of the concerns at the Planning Commission meeting and said, look, what can we do to address some of these concerns? And so these are the conditions that Randy referred to earlier. No bare conditions. All buildings must be three-sided, floor to ceiling. All buildings must have concrete floors. The wash water has to enter a detention pond before it can get to the undisturbed area. There'll be installed odor eliminating systems in the roof of each building. And then the caches are also willing to leave an undisturbed buffer along the property line between this property and Ms. Goolsby's property. That's in addition to the buffer you saw in the slide earlier.
So correct me if I'm wrong, you're willing to have a larger buffer than what would be required by the city of Cartersville?
I don't think there is a buffer requirement on heavy industrial.
Heavy industrial.
No, they're heavy industrial,
Yeah.
heavy industrial.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, you're willing to put one when one's not required, I guess.
That's right.
Thank
That's
you.
right. And that obviously diminishes the usable area that they're paying for. All right, next slide, please. There was some concern about, well, what happens if the caches go away or vanish in the middle of the night? Well, that would be a horrible business decision. But even if they did and they left these two structures full of waste, what would it cost to get rid of it? Hauling and disposal fees on the size buildings that they're proposing is about $10,000. We as a landlord can absorb that if that happens. Next slide. You may say, well, how are you going to do that? Well, these are the principals that are affiliated with the landlord. Jim Smith, 40 years in the trucking business. Andrew Smith, 20 years in the trucking business. And me, Howard Smith, have been leasing commercial industrial buildings here for over 20 years. If the caches leave and leave a mess, which there are EPD regulations that are in place on how you have to close a transfer station, we've got the trucks, we've got the capacity to haul the trash out, and I've got the expertise to release this property and get it performing again.
And you would essentially be the one that's liable for that?
I suppose.
Yeah.
I suppose.
Okay.
I don't know that for a fact, but I suppose. So I'm happy to answer any questions if anybody has any.
Any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Continue on with our public hearing. And ask anybody wishing to step forward and speak for or against to do so at this time.
Good afternoon, good evening. My name's Floyd Gregory Goolsby. Address is 2016 297th Way, Falls City, Washington. I'm Mr. Goolsby and the co-owner of the property at 329 Industrial Park Road. It's a 20,000 square foot building. Howard just referred to that. Obviously, we've got concerns, and I appreciate the clarification and all the information that's been provided tonight. Our principal concern is based on the operations and through the public records research. We still have concerns about what may happen that's happened in the past with the operations with Cache Environmental. And given what we've read in the newspapers, what's in the public records and the number of violations, it still is a concern of ours. We don't know the caches, but certainly we feel like there's impact on our tenants there. We have two tenants. Between the two of them employ about 20 people. Their employees have concerns about what's going on, so we have to recognize that. The Chapter 11 bankruptcy, we still don't quite understand it. Obviously, it's a reorganization, but it still raises questions in our mind as to the viability of this and you know, what does happen if indeed this becomes insolvent and what happens to the degradation of the property. It's you know, there's an odor concern. There's a lot of things that we feel like will impact the operations that we have there. We've got a substantial investment. We just ask that you look closely at the operators and make sure that this is the type of operator that is going to be suitable for Cartersville operating this type of facility. That's our concern. It's not a transfer station. We understand that this is an industrial area and there's a lot of similar activities, not necessarily processing municipal waste. That's a little different story from construction waste, but I think the issue for us is how it's operated based on some of the photographs that we saw from EPD. We felt like, gosh, this is really, really bad. So maybe we're wrong, but I've been in business for 40 years, and I know a lot of times leopards don't change their spots. They continue to do similar things. So That's all I have to say.
So, Mr. Goolsby, just to make sure I'm hearing you right, your concern isn't over the usage of the land, your concern is over the company that would be doing
Yes,
it?
exactly. Based on all the information in newspapers, all of the reports that we've read, I know there've only been 4 this year, but you know, we're talking about a landfill that caught on fire and burned for an extended period of time. You know, that to me is pretty serious business. Okay.
Any other
Thank you.
questions for Mr. Goolsby?
Thank you.
Sir. Continuing on with SU 22-03, anybody else wishing to step forward to speak for or against may do so at this time. And seeing none, I will close the public hearing for SU 22-03. Council, have any other questions or need for clarification from staff at this time? Thank you. Council will take this up with another public hearing and consideration at our meeting on November the 3rd. Moving on to SU 22-04.
Thank you again, Mayor and Council. This is the proposed special use permit that was discussed during T2204 regarding the private park. The applicant has a specific site that they are looking to put the private ball field on. With that, I think we discussed it pretty much during the text amendment. The applicant is still here for the special use permit. To answer the previous question that was asked, I can't remember who asked it, lighting is not proposed per their application in writing. So that is one of the 7 things we evaluate special use permit applications on, and per their application, right now the fields will not be lighted.
Would that be, I mean, later on, if they wanted to add lighting, is that something that, I mean, if something zone has a permit for a private park, is lighting allowed there?
Well, again, one of the 7 things that we evaluate a special use permit on is lighting. Their application does state it will not be lighted. So we could go an extra step if there was a concern about lighting and condition it to no lighting, and then they make them come back before you if they chose to light it in the future. So,
okay.
Or we can consider the application where they actually wrote no lighting as part of their approval.
All right. Thank you. I'll open up a public hearing for SU 22-04. Ask anybody who wishes to step forward to speak for or against to do so at this time.
Good evening again. Lauren Knoll, Southland Engineering, 114 Old Mill Road. I'm just here to answer any questions that you may have regarding the special use permit.
Questions? Go ahead.
The paper practice, is that for team, organization, or how would that?
So it is going to be a private ball field for the youth, and I do believe they have a team in mind. I'm not too familiar on the specifics of which team it will be, but there is an organization that is going to be using this particular field.
Basically, they would be building a field that they could rent out.
Correct.
But you have one particular team in mind for the rent already?
I would have to ask my client. I'm not entirely sure.
What did you say earlier? What was your?
Sorry. So the field is going to be used for youth ball field practice, but they will be kind of renting it out, and that's why it's going to be private. But as far as a particular team right now, I don't have that answer for you.
Any other questions? Thank you. Again, we'll continue on with the public hearing for SU 22-04. Anybody wishing to step forward at this time, speak for or against, may do so. And seeing none, I'll close the public hearing for SU 22-04. We'll take this up for another public hearing and final consideration at our meeting on November 3rd. Mr. Porter, you've got the next item.
Yes, Mayor. This is an agreement with Freeman Mathis and Gary, LLP. It's going to assist us with updating our reasonable accommodation policy and our personnel manual, and I recommend this for approval.
Questions, comments, or motions?
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. While Mr. Morgan is making his way forward, Chair will entertain a motion to add 2 items to the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
2 items added. Mr. Morgan, how are you?
Yes, sir. Doing well, sir.
Good.
We're bringing before you tonight a maintenance agreement, service maintenance agreement with TKE. We're asking for your approval. We are asking, though, if it is approved, to have it approved with the condition that the mayor can sign after any changes to the contract. Keith had some changes that we updated, so any of those changes come back would go back through legal approval, and Dan would sign off on it also.
Okay. Is that a condition that would need to be put on the motion?
Yeah.
All right. If there's any questions, now it's time to ask them, or discussion. If not, a motion's in order.
Motion to approve?
Would you like to add the condition that I can sign the paperwork?
Yeah.
Any changes to that after?
Legal review and
I'm happy to say that Keith has worked on this from home, and that's kind of good news.
We're happy to hear it.
Yes.
Yes.
Very good.
Very good.
All right. So, we do have a motion and a
I'll second
second.
that.
All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion
Aye.
carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
We're also bringing before you, the next item is the local heat assistance and water assistance program. It's a grant program that we participated in previously, that's renewed yearly. So we want to bring that back so our customers that are eligible can use this grant program to assist with any of their heating and or water bills.
Okay, thank you. Questions, comments, or motions?
Motion to approve?
Second.
All in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Motion carries unanimously. You have a presentation, I believe. do you
Yes,
not?
sir.
All right.
The property that we have, and we're bringing before you, Mr. Henderson, Mr. Womack, and their group, the property that we have to look at again is the 178 West Main Street property, the old police building. They were a bidder when we originally put the RFP out there. We went with the one bidder that opted out. They're bringing their proposal back. You have in your packets all the information that we send, and we'll updated information with the financials and the costs and so forth. I'd like for them to come up if they can at this time.
Hey, Matt Womack, 716 West Avenue, Cartersville, 30120. Mr. Mayor, Council. Yeah, this is a proposal that we put together in response to an RFP that the city issued. It's been 15, 16 months ago, I guess. We had proposed a residential development and put our packet together. We've assembled a team that where we think we can do this successfully, and are looking for the council to just approve our proposal.
Are we approving the proposal tonight, or we're approving the city to go in negotiations with the company to develop a proposal?
Last time this was done, Mr. Mayor, I believe you were in that of the attorney, city attorney, myself, and Mr. Morgan negotiated a contract, and then the council brought forth a contract that's agreeable to both sides, giving them due diligence to do their evaluation, and then that moves forward. If there's any regulations or conditions you want to put on there, in particular, that's part of the contract.
So that comes before us again before.
That's what we did
everything's
last
done.
time.
Okay. So we're, again, the way I understand it, we're essentially approving or agreeing that we're going to have you guys go into negotiations with them to come up with this or something similar to this that will later come before us for us to vote on. Yes, is that true? Okay. That's the way you all understand it too?
Well, yeah, it's my understanding we would actually go to contract. And we did propose a sale price. I don't know if that is the one that we will go to contract on, but what are your thoughts on that?
That will be part of that, because it was a public bid. It would have to be the $550,000. But again, it's the terms of the contract, and then how quickly you're going to go, get up to speed, and if you take ownership of property, how much due diligence time you need, everything, basically like purchasing property anyway.
Yeah. And we did lay out a timeline in the proposal of kind of how we thought that would work, and we think we can stick to that. I will say there was one difference from the proposal that we submitted last year to the one this year, is just we changed just the facade of the building that we're proposing on building. It was a little contemporary, and I think we're going for a more traditional look that will fit in better downtown. Actually, Cindy printed out some pictures of some product that we like, and we would like to kind of use this as an inspiration to build these. Now, this is a concept. This is more than likely not exactly what this will be. We don't have a signed survey right now showing exactly how big the lot is. So there's obviously a lot of stuff to work out, but that's where the due diligence comes in.
Yes, that would be in the contract terms if you guys do the diligence period, if you evaluations that you need to do.
Okay.
Yeah, and again, the way I understand it, relative to the price, I mean, that's not something that's gonna be, that was in the bid package, that was, I think when we talk about working with the city staff, it was more over the design elements and looks and items of that nature.
Yeah, development, and then, I'm sure we'll have to talk to the historical preservation folks about what it looks like and all that stuff. So, yeah, I understand that.
Okay, thank you. Very good. Anybody have any questions? Okay, Chair will entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously, I think. Gary, you there?
He's gone.
Oh, he's gone, okay.
Mr. Mayor, can I?
Thank you.
One comment?
Sure.
It's Barry Henderson, 4 Howard Heights, and I just wanted to make the comment that this particular piece of property is like a centerpiece on your table. This is a very, very visible piece of property, and it's the first time there's ever been a piece of property that I know of in many, many years that starts a development or redevelopment, of whatever you want to call it, for downtown. And I think all of us, Matt and I both live in the historic district. We're very involved in the city. And I just want to say that we're very, very tuned in to making this property an extremely nice piece of property, and to make it fit that centerpiece presence that it has. So as we work through this, we'll have ideas and the city will have ideas. But working as a team, I think we come up with something that we're damn proud of. I really do. Just want to say that.
Thank you. Mr. Forsyth, I think you're up next. Badger Daylighting.
Yes, sir. Good evening, Mayor and Council. The first item I have here is we had, as a matter of routine maintenance in the wastewater plant, we had drained a couple of aeration basins, and as per normal, they're full of grit and sludge and sand and those kind of things. And it was more full than normal, so we had to bring in a vacuum truck to clean those out. City staff could have done it with their own equipment, would have taken about 2 weeks. They did it in 2 days. But now I have this invoice for $8,804.04 to pay to Badger Daylighting. Is a budgeted maintenance expense and recommended for your approval.
Thank you. Questions, comments, or motions?
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Motion carries unanimously.
Yes, sir. The second item is grit chamber repair parts. Again, as a matter of routine maintenance, we have 2 grit chambers in the wastewater plant. About every 4 to 5 years, they have to be completely rebuilt, just because of the nature of what they do. The number 2 grit chamber is now due for rebuilding. WSG and Solutions Inc. is the sole source provider for the Envirex grit collector mechanisms. They have given us a price of $49,059 for all the material to repair that grit collector, or rebuild it rather. It is a budgeted expense recommended for your approval.
Thank you. Any discussion? If not, a motion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously.
Yes, sir. And the final item I have is the Atlanta Regional Commission payment. This is a payment we make annually to the Atlanta Regional Commission and the Metropolitan North Georgia Water Planning District. This allows us to be a party and allows us attorney-client privilege meetings to discuss water supply allocation with the Corps of Engineers in Lake Altoona. This is a shared cost between the city and Bartow County. The city's portion is $50,000. Bartow County will pay an equal amount to the ARC as well. It is a budgeted expense. We recommend it for your approval.
Okay, any discussion? If not, a motion.
Motion to approve?
Second.
All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Mr. Hampton, you're up.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This next item up
switching cubicles, PMH 11. These are some switching cubicles we need to serve the Northwest Logistics Park on the south end of town on 293. The S&C cubicles, which are our standardized cubicles that we use, are sole sourced to utilities in the state through Whitehead and Associates. These cubicles will enable us to serve power to the logistics park on Highway 293, and also eventually will serve as a backup tie point to serve Tennessee Street in case of an emergency. The total price for 2 cubicles was $55,734, and this is a budgeted expense. We recommend approval.
Thank you. Any discussion? If not, a motion's in order.
Make a motion to approve.
Second. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously.
All right. Next item is the transformers for 175 Main Street Apartments. Requesting authorization to purchase 6 300 kVA transformers. We did go out to bid on these, got 3 bids back. We are requesting to purchase the units from Transformer Network, Inc. They were the lowest bid. The delivery time was a little longer, but based on where they are with the construction, we just didn't see the point in paying almost twice as much for the transformers and just sit on the yard until they get ready for them. So we do have 1 or 2 that we could start with if they did get started earlier. But the price of the transformers for 6 of them was $86,100, and it was a budget expense.
Thank you. Questions, comments, or motions?
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Last one for you, Derek. No, you got 2 more.
Nah, 2 more. I'm sorry I loaded you up. These 2 750 kVA transformers for basically for both floor. They're doing an expansion up there, and we having to buy 2 of them because we don't have one in this size and this voltage, primary voltage. So we needed a backup. We did go out and receive 5 bids. We are requesting to purchase the units from Transform Network. They were very close to being equal to the lowest bid, but the delivery times was 30 weeks shorter. So we deemed them the best bid overall based on that combination. And the total price for the 2 units was $44,900.
Thank you. Questions, comments, or motions?
Make a motion for the best bid.
Second.
All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. I like when you buy that kind of stuff, Derek, because that means we're growing and
Oh,
there's gonna
yes.
be electricity running through those things. So go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. And the last one was for the same industrial park out here, a logistics park out here in the south end of town. We're looking to purchase 250 kVA transformers to serve them. We also got 5 bids on this one, and we're requesting to purchase the units from Transformer Network, Inc., being that they were pretty much identical in price to the cheapest bid and 30 weeks shorter. We qualified them as best bid, so we're recommending for $23,740 to purchase the 2 units from them. Budgeted expense.
Thank you. Any discussion? If not, a motion's in order.
Make a motion for purchase of the best bid.
Second.
All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, sir. Right-of-way deed dedication for Jackson Farm.
Yes, Mayor, this is for Phase 1, Units 2 and 3, Jackson Farm. It's their standard deed of dedication for the right-of-way out there, and I recommend this for your approval.
Questions, comments, or motions?
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Certificate of dedication for Everton Estates.
Yes, sir, this is Everton Estates Phase 1, water and sewer lines, and standard deed of dedication and maintenance agreement. I recommend this for your approval as well.
Questions, comments, or motions?
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Mr. Reinhardt. You need to slip Dan some money to move you to the front of the agenda one of these nights, don't you? Save the best for last, right?
Well, I wouldn't go that far, but we'll give it a shot. How about that?
All right, let's do it.
Honorable Mayor and Council, we'll be looking at the August 2022 numbers and comparing them to August 2021. And the general fund revenues increased over last August by $785,000. Expenses increased by $147,000. 2 areas of revenues I look at on a monthly basis: local up and sales tax. You can see that we've got about $154,000 increase there. Building permits and inspection fees have an increase there of about $290,000. In the water and sewer fund, revenues increased over last August by $1.164 million. Expenses decreased by $226,000. This is due to decreased personnel expenses, increased operating expenses, decreased debt service expenses, decreased capital expenses, and increased transfers to the general fund. In the gas fund, the revenues increased over last August by $3.114 million. Expenses also increased by $3.477 million. This is due to decreased personnel expenses, increased operating expenses, increased cost of purchased gas, increased capital expenses, and increased transfers to the general fund. In the electric fund, revenues increased over last year by $1.38 million. Expenses increased by $1.74 million. This is due to decreased personnel cost, increased operating expenses, increased cost of purchased electricity, increased capital expenses, and increased transfers to the general fund. Stormwater fund, revenues decreased over last August by $3,000. Expenses decreased by $17,000. This is due to decreased personnel expenses, decreased operating expenses, and increased capital expenses. In the solid waste fund, revenues decreased over last year by $221,000, while expenses decreased by $36,000. This is due to increased personnel expenses and decreased operating expenses. And finally, in the fiber optics fund, revenues increased over last year by $34,000. Expenses decreased by $50,000. This is due to increased personnel expenses, increased operating expenses, increased capital expenses, and increased transfers to the general fund. In our cash position for the month of August, unrestricted cash increased while the restricted cash decreased. SPLOST account balances, SPLOST 2003 balance is $56,747.50. SPLOST 2014, $231,991.10. SPLOST 2020, $6,823,261.69.
Okay. Yes, Mr. Mayor, a couple things to point out. Tom mentioned some of this. I'll elaborate a little further. General fund, obviously, through August, it's looking much better than in prior year. You can see where general fund actually had a net profit for the month of August, which is unusual for us because property taxes typically don't come in. But we did have some additional revenues come in as well as lower expenditures. A couple other things to point out, particularly on the gas. Obviously, we've been talking about this for several months, but the natural gas, Michael Dixon, the gas superintendent, gave me an update in August. The index price was $12.44 per decatherm. That's the highest he's ever seen it before, and that's driving not only our natural gas costs, which unfortunately will our citizens will see that as these cold days like we have had the last couple of days will happen. It's going to be costly for that, as well as an electric side. As I've shared with the council on 40% of our electric productivity, where power generation is natural gas. And by these higher coal prices and natural gas prices is driving up our electric costs, which unfortunately we have to pass on to our citizens. But you can see where the gas for the month of August was $1.8 million for the month for August, and then electric fund only had a $22,000 net profit, which is very low for the electric. But we're trying to do our best to maintain our rates as affordable as we can. Our competition is having to raise rates because of these high costs that are throughout the industry.
Yep, and once again, as Tom pointed out, our expenses on the gas side increased 3.47. 3.41 of that is the purchase of the gas. And the electric side, expenses increased 1.74. 1.72 of that is simply the increase in the purchase cost of purchasing the electricity. So nobody's happy about it. Everybody up here's got to pay the same rates as everybody else, and I applaud the city for doing what they can to help keep expenses down in other areas that we can control. So thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
Dan, you had a couple of items that you wanted to mention?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. One, the Georgia Airports Association awarded the Cartersville Airport Authority, our airport, the 2022 Airport Project of the Year. You take the greatest picture up there, but basically that was our $10 million project for the runway repaving project out there, as well as EMAS on the north end, which is the Engineered Materials Arrestor System. I just want to share that with the Mayor Council. And the Georgia Airport Association president mentioned that the local funding source of that $10 million project with about $1.8 million of local funding, and he said he wished he could get that locally. And I applaud the mayor and council as well as the commissioner joining forces with the airport authority to help fund that project. And as we all know, I mean, we have some corporate partners out there as well as other industry that comes to town because of using that airport. So it's a generation airport, but I wanted to share that with the mayor and council. The next thing I wanted to congratulate Freddie on, he was appointed as director in Northwest Corridor of the Georgia City County Manager Association. It's basically District 1. He's a representative for us, and Freddie and I are part of the Georgia City County Manager Association. He's going to be working with other city county managers and assistants in this District 1, so congratulations, Freddie, on that.
Congrats.
Congratulations.
And then the final is just a reminder of tomorrow at 11 o'clock, for those that can attend, we are doing a trail system renaming, and on behalf of Greg Anderson. It's going to be called Greg Anderson Trail System at Pine Mountain. He was a long tenured city employee. He did a lot for us with the Parks and Recreation, but it's going to remind everybody and any citizens that can come out there to Pine Mountain tomorrow at 11 o'clock for that renaming.
Thank you. Well said. Anything else that needs to come before council this evening? I want to tell you all a little story. No, I'm just kidding. You'll entertain a motion to adjourn. So move. There you go.
Go Canes.
Go. Got it.
All right, thanks, sir.